About a month ago, I was in New Hampshire. We were there for a funeral, and I got asked to be the photographer. I didn't mind at all because I would just wander around like a fly on the wall and take photos, and everything was great until it wasn't. And that's because people then would pull me aside and be like, hey, can you take a photo of us? And then they would kind of line up, and then they would be like, okay, tell us where to go, tell us what to do, what pose should we make? And yeah, I kind of had a mini meltdown. Towards the end of the event, my wife was catching up with some of her old friends, and they were asking, what does Brandon do? She's like, oh, he does YouTube. He's a photographer. And I kind of pulled her aside and be like, hey, don't call me that anymore. And I wasn't trying to be humble, and I wasn't like upset, but I just felt like in that moment, a real photographer could have handled that with ease. And so because of my lack of skill, I was like, I'm not comfortable being called that anymore. While I do get lucky every once in a while and I take a pretty photo, I do not think that constitutes being called a photographer. But I want to be. I'm going to share with you 3 things that I'm going to do that I think if I can complete, if I can work on, I will have the skill and therefore the confidence in calling myself a photographer. Number 1 is I need to have a body of work. Right now, all of my work is just simply floating around Instagram, social media, and I don't think that's a great way to come across as a professional. I think the perception of just having your work spread across social media is that it's more of a hobby. Now, again, this is just my personal take. So if I say it's about me, it's the standard I'm setting for myself. It has nothing to do with you, just FYI. I think every serious artist needs to have their body of work in one central, organized, up-to-date place, such as a website. For me, this is something I've needed to do for a long time, but I haven't, because building a website kind of scares me. This is not sponsored by Squarespace. In the middle of this thing, I'm not going to be like, this is sponsored by Squarespace. It's not going to happen. But that is probably who I'll use to build the website. The second part of this actually is to finally start printing my work. I think social media is great. It's fun to look at, see your photos there, but something about having a photo that you've taken in physical form that you can physically handle and look at is a completely different thing. I don't understand what it takes to make a good print. I've tried twice. I've failed twice, and that's because I have no idea what I'm doing. And unfortunately, the printing presses, the places I went to, had no desire in educating me and helping me make a good print, and both of the prints were ruined. That left such a bad taste in my mouth, I didn't want to do it again. But I am being asked for prints, and I think if I'm going to be asked, I might as well make them, but I don't want anything to just be printed. I want something that I can be proud of to be printed, and so that is also a goal of mine. So a body of work, portfolio, and printed versions of that work. Number 2 is a better understanding of lighting. Now, I've come a long way since I first started, but I still feel like I am incredibly underskilled in this regard. Photography always comes down to lighting. Good photography comes down to good lighting in many cases, and that is working with it, working around it, manipulating it if need be. And I think a part of the reason why I had that little mini meltdown is because I was having a hard time in the lighting conditions where they were like, hey, place us where you want it to be. I immediately start thinking of lighting and what's going to be good. And I've seen people do this hand thing. My buddy Brady was doing this, and I'm like, what are you seeing? I just couldn't wrap my head around it. It's so much easier to just walk around and shoot with natural light. But that doesn't always work. And I'm using constant lights in the studio. And like I said, this looks okay. I think it looks good to me. But there have been many times where I'm like, I know flash and strobes would be so much better for this photo, not video, for this photo, but I have no clue how to use them. So for me personally, I really want to use and understand flash photography this year. That's going to be a big push for me. Even if you don't use it, I think flash photography is a skill that every photographer should know. It is so much easier to do the fly on the wall event photography. I'm not saying it doesn't take skill, but it's a whole lot easier because You don't have to directly interact with people in many instances, right? I'm just there. I see a good moment. I take a shot. I'm good. I'm not working with lights and I'm not working with people. When people start grabbing me and going, okay, pose us, tell us what to do, make us look good, I was like, I have no idea what to do. And it was incredibly frustrating. And so one of the last thing on this list is learning how to be comfortable to pose people. So I need to find somebody that's really good at this, shadow them for many weeks, many different photo shoots, and learn how to pose both men and women, get better at it, because if I'm better at it, I'm more comfortable, I have more confidence, and that's going to make the people that pull me aside and say, hey, pose this, that's going to make them more comfortable. And I need to do more portraiture work, like actual studio session portrait work. And that is something that I have been very uncomfortable with, no knowledge, no skill. And of course, it just scares the ever living hell out of me. So that is number 3 on my list of what I'm going to work on so that I can call myself a photographer by the end of the year. 2025 for me is going to have a lot more intentionality. I spent an entire year last year walking around every day pretty much with a camera on my neck so that I could get my reps in. If you watch this video up here, I was talking about getting your reps in, like practicing photography like a sport, like you got to get your reps in. I felt like I've got my reps in. However, because it was more or less just very broad spectrum, I wasn't working on some very specific skills. I feel like my work has become stagnant. Like straight up, if I'm being honest, I'm really kind of just bored of my work. One thing I also learned from sports is that you need a small group of people that you can trust to tell you the cold hard truth of where you're at. Right now on the internet, you pretty much get one or two things. You get the haters, the trolls that will just hate on everything you do, regardless of how good or bad you are. And then you're going to have the opposite, which are your really good friends that just don't want to hurt your feelings, and they're going to tell you positive things always. That is not good either. I'm very serious about improving. And so I need to find 2 or 3 people that I can show my work to, and they are going to critique it fairly. And they're going to help me get better. I need that. And I think by doing these 3 things, these 3 steps, I'm going to accomplish those 2 things. I'm going to enjoy my work better. I'm not going to be bored of it. I'm going to feel more creative and more challenged. And 2, I'm going to get real critique, real feedback, which is going to help me actually get better. And if you feel like this experiment could help you, this experience could help you, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. That's it. It was a pretty short video, not a lot of B-roll. I'm just talking to you as a person. This is what I'm going to try to accomplish. You can now move on to all of the many what's in my bag for 2025 videos that you're definitely going to see. That's actually my next video. I'm going to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show down in Vegas, next week, and I'm going to be packing my bag, and I'm going to be showing you what's in my bag when I travel for an event. If you've got any questions at all, let me know down in the comments below. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.